Every step that chips away at the power of the largest government in history is a small step forward for the Constitution and liberty. So let's start with Nullification News Report number 1. In Utah this week, Governor Spencer Cox signed a bill into law that requires police to get a warrant before obtaining reverse location information for electronic devices within a geofence or by using cell site records in most situations. In effect, passage of House Bill 57 limits a process known as geofencing, which totally circumvents the restrictions of the Fourth Amendment and many similar provisions in state constitutions. Electronic Frontier Foundation put it this way: if police are investigating a crime, anything from vandalism to arson, they instead submit requests that do not identify a single suspect or a particular user account. Instead, with geofence warrants, they draw a box on a map and compel the company to identify every digital device within that drawn boundary during a given period of time. The new law in Utah goes into effect on May 3rd, and that brings me to Nullification News Report number 2. This week in Idaho, the state house passed the Second Amendment Financial Privacy Act by a vote of 66-4. If passed into law, it would prohibit a financial institution or its agent from requiring the usage of a firearms code in a way that distinguishes a firearms retailer physically located in the state of Idaho from Idaho general merchandise retailers or sporting goods retailers. This is just another tool to create a de facto registry of who owns what. An almost identical bill passed the Florida Senate this week. The vote was 27-11. And in Mississippi, House Bill 1110 passed both the House and Senate. A conference committee has been assigned to hammer out technical differences between the two chambers before it can get approved and sent to the governor. Nothing helps us do this kind of activism more than the financial faith and support of our members. Over at 10thamendmentcenter.com/members, you can join us for as little as $2 a month. We also have annual, lifetime, and 5-year options. And you can help us take a stand for the Constitution and liberty, whether the government happens to like it or not. So a big thanks goes out to you through the TAC membership program for sponsoring this episode of Nullification Movement News. Alrighty, so welcome back to the show, and last up for today is Nullification News Report number 3. You might remember all the way back to episode 1 of this show, Sticking a Finger in the Eye of the Empire, I reported on efforts in a number of states to pass the Defend the Guard Act. The bill would prohibit the deployment of state guard troops in active duty combat unless Congress does something it hasn't done in decades: follow the Constitution on war powers. I'm really glad to report that as I wrap up this first season of Nullification Movement News, the Arizona Senate passed SB 1367 from Wendy Rogers by a vote of 16-13. Now you might be thinking that was a pretty close vote, so not all that awesome, but the bill was almost certainly going to get killed just a couple of weeks ago. But 4 or 5 of the likely no votes got so much pressure, so many phone calls in support of the bill, that it was politically uncomfortable to do anything other than vote yes. And the only reason that happened was the relentless activism in support and a large coalition working to get the job done. There are groups like Bring Our Troops Home, the RLC, LP, and Mises Caucus of Arizona, plus other Friends of Liberty like Scott Horton, and too many others to be named on this episode. In short, it takes a lot of work to get a victory against the largest government in history, and this small step is a victory, but the work isn't done, not even close. As Samuel Adams put it, instead of sitting down satisfied with the efforts we have already made, which is the wish of our enemies, the necessity of the times more than ever calls for our utmost circumspection, deliberation, fortitude, and perseverance. Now, I know it's probably sad that this first season of Nullification Movement News is all done, but I'll be back to my regular Fast Friday podcast starting next week. And if we truly love and support liberty, we can recognize that a real nullification season is every single day of the year. It's truly up to us to defend the Constitution and to defend our own liberty, whether the government happens to like it or not. Thank you so much for watching.